So let's talk about neurodivergent consulting. So what type of services do you provide? Who do you work with? Tell me what you've got going on with that.
Yeah. So I've worked with businesses in the past. A lot of times the first step is going to be education in the work sphere. But also, maybe they have an employee that's neurodivergent and they're struggling in the workplace. And there have been cases where I've been brought in to help coach that employee with a career coaching capacity, but really it's not the employee that needs, well, they do need some maybe coaching and guidance and you give them that, but it's not just the employee. A lot of times the manager needs coaching on how to be a better communicator with people who communicate differently, or you will dig into what's going on with the employee, and your goal as a coach is to help them remove for them. And so you become aware of these obstacles, that maybe there is a handbook that isn't written in a way that's accessible to a neurodivergent employee, or maybe the company policies or something in the way things are being done is stacked against them, and we need to fix a company policy. And so in that instance, because I'd love to just jump in and work on company policy, sometimes they won't just bring me in to look at all of that. I'll find one and go, hey, we need to change this policy here. And that's nice to work in businesses because you're changing things for all of the employees, not just the autistic and neurodivergent employees. And a lot of times the things that benefit us really can benefit everyone too. And so, I was working with businesses when I had a full-time job, and that actually no longer exists now. COVID, many changes, but I think it's maybe the best thing that's ever happened to me, even though I loved my job and my team, and we're still on really good terms even now, and I'm working together with them on some things. But now I'm trying new things. I've been forced into something that's a little bit uncomfortable, and it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm even working with another autistic advocate, and we're going to deliver some public trainings that are really affordable and offer those to the public. And we're going to do a whole series in 2021.
Nice.
And that'll be really exciting. So things I wouldn't have been able to do or wouldn't have done otherwise, because I was kind of like a little birdie pushed out of the nest. And I realized, when I lost my full-time job and the structure and security that came with it, that I didn't care as much about the structure and security anymore, as much as I wanted to love the work I was doing. And I loved designing trainings for the workplace. I loved delivering trainings, and I loved trying to make workplaces better places for all employees. And I wanted to keep doing that. And so I've decided, I'm going to still do that. I'm just going to do it on my own and on a much smaller scale. And, it's much more rewarding because I only am doing the things I want to do. And, there's just a lot of problems we need to tackle and fix. And it's a big problem. There's a lot of different organizations out there, and most of them aren't set up correctly.
I remember when we talked the other day, you were saying it could be as small as the handbook is written with just these walls of text. It could be just as small as that. Mm-hmm. And that's just not accessible to a lot of readers.
Yeah.
And it's something that nobody would ever think of. Like it's the handbook, but people read the handbook, and the handbook is there for a reason. So yeah, it could be as small as that, or it could be like, what are some things that maybe you would go in and fix in a workplace that you fixed before?
Well, say a big thing that employers need to look at is generally their hiring process and the way they recruit talent. If before COVID, it was harder to get them to be willing to let people work remotely, because they're like, how will we know they're working? How will we keep tabs on them? And that points at a bigger problem, is you need a workplace that has trust and vulnerability-based trust, where people can trust each other and be vulnerable and open when they have something they're struggling with in the work, and they have to be able to come forward and share these things. Because work culture, office culture, a lot of workplaces, especially corporate, which is where I had my own burnout and breakdown, there's a culture that champions being able to take abuse. And it's like, how much abuse and suffering can you take without breaking? And it breeds this atmosphere where anyone showing or expressing weakness, what's perceived as weakness, or anyone who says, hey, I'm struggling or having a hard time, they'll be ostracized for doing that, or they're thought of less of for doing that. And so it can lead
Lazy.
to
Yeah.
people burning out. And, you know, a lot of workplaces aren't accessible. So they've got to look at those policies. But, you know, when I go in there, the hiring, you know, how they bring people in, but then also it can be the sensory environment, which is a big reason I started working remotely, so I can have complete control over that because I'm very sensitive to my environment. But if I had to go into an office physically, you know, what kind of lighting do they have? Are there ways people can work in quiet spaces if they need them? And these things saying, oh, people can wear headphones when they're working and people can go work somewhere quiet if they feel they need to work somewhere quiet. This can benefit everyone. You know, if a neurodivergent employee needs it, but then someone who is neurotypical, maybe they're learning something new, or then they might benefit from that as well, because they situationally might need to go somewhere quiet to focus and work. Everyone needs to focus every now and then. And so having like a space where people can focus and work in quiet benefits everyone. And that's the thing I encountered when I was in the corporate culture and I came forward with my needs and said, hey, this is what I need to be successful in my job. I was met with people whose responses were along the lines of, well, everyone would like to have that. And it's like, well, if everyone would like to have it, that's kind of the point. Like, your
Right.
office is set up in a way that nobody even likes it. Everyone wants to have what I'm asking. Let's fix it.
Don't be a no person, be a yes person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to people, believe them. You know, I didn't know I was autistic for 29 years. So people may not even have a diagnosis, but if someone says, hey, the light hurts my eyes, don't say, oh, well, I need a doctor's note. Or
I was just thinking that because, I mean, just imagine how many employees don't know that they're neurodivergent. They just feel like at the end of the day or during the day, they just have this god awful headache and they're popping, you know, Advil after Advil, and then they're getting sick. I remember I used to get sick every year when school started. I was a teacher and I would get a terrible sinus infection after like the third week, and I'd be out of school for a week in the first, you know, in the first grading period. But I was, you know, completely, you know, I just couldn't take it. And I don't know if it was the sinus infection or what it was, but yeah, I mean, and I never even heard of the term neurodivergent back then.
Oh, yeah. No, and I had migraines, you know, for 29 years, 30 years of my life without knowing why I had migraines. And they started when I was in elementary school. I remember there was fluorescent lighting in my classroom, but I didn't know that's what it was. I know now that there was. I remember the lights because they were very bright. And going to the nurse with headaches, and because I was going almost every day and saying I had a headache, and the nurse would take my temperature and I had no fever, the nurse says, well, this kid just doesn't want to be in class. They don't like school. You need to go back in class. It doesn't matter. I don't want to hear about these headaches anymore. And so I just decided I needed to shut up and take it. And I went 29, 30 years of my life having headaches anytime I was around fluorescent lighting and not making the connection. And until I found out I was autistic and stopped exposing myself to that, I can't even tell you the last migraine I've had at this point. But I was having them almost every day when I had to go sit under those lights. Within like 4 hours, like clockwork, it would be like starting to come on. Within 6 hours, I would be already to the point where I was a really grumpy, angry person because I was just like, you know, that throbbing.
Yeah.
You know, and I was miserable and I was wasting away. I was sick. I was losing weight. I was tired all the time. I'd go to work and I'd just come home and crash. I had no energy left. I wasn't engaging in the things I loved. I wasn't spending time with my loved ones and the people that matter to me. Hey, you know, I had nothing left to give and I didn't even have energy left to recharge. My self-care fell apart. Everything fell apart. It was just, it's autopilot because you're just surviving. You're not thriving. It's freaking miserable.